Hello everybody! For those who don't know me, I'm Caleb from Caleb2Vids. If you're a huge fan of anime, what would be your favorite shows? My favorite anime shows are My Hero Academia, Chainsaw Man, Overlord, and Danganronpa 3 The End of Host Peak High School. Ever since I played the Danganronpa games last year in April, I absolutely love the story, the characters, and the lore. My favorite game in Danganronpa is Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair, because I love that it takes place on a tropical island, and that you have multiple islands to go to. And I absolutely love the story, and that the characters were more colorful than in the first game. The games were so successful that they made two animes. Danganronpa the Animation, which is an adaptation of the first game, Trigger Happy Havoc, and Danganronpa 3 The End of Host Peak High School, which takes place after Goodbye Despair. And they're also going to be releasing another game in the franchise, Danganronpa 2x2, which is supposed to be a remake of Goodbye Despair, that will have the same story with better graphics, but also a new storyline with new scenarios and culprits. So for today's video, I thought it'd be fun to celebrate the 15th anniversary of Danganronpa by doing a top 10 video, where I go over the 10 darkest and scariest moments in Danganronpa 3 The End of Host Peak High School. For this list, I will be going over what I think are the scariest and darkest moments in the Despair and Future arc. Now before I go over this list, keep in mind that this is only my personal opinion and not based on any facts. Also, this list is going to go over some major plot points, so beware of spoilers ahead. Which of these moments chilled you to the bone? Let me know in the comments. Now without further ado, let's get started. Number 10. Sanosuke Izuyoi's death. Both Sanosuke and Ruruka have been together ever since childhood, and have always loved each other no matter what. They look like a cute couple, right? Fun fact, in the English dub of this show, Ruruka Ando was voiced by Jad Saxton, who also voiced as Itsuka Kendo in My Hero Academia. And Sanosuke Izuyoi was voiced by Brandon McInnes, who also voiced Sir Night-Eye. Learn something new every day, am I right? Anyway, while Sanosuke and Ruruka are hiding, Sanosuke finds a bookshelf with a hidden door, thinking that he found the exit. After he seals it up and sets a few traps, Ruruka reveals her insecurities about always feeling betrayed, and asks him not to betray her, to which he says he would never betray the person he loves. Now here's where things get dark. After Ruruka tells Sanosuke about her fears, she then kisses him, secretly slipping a piece of candy in his mouth, causing him to break his NG code of not eating anything, which slowly starts to kill him. Ruruka said that she couldn't risk him betraying her, so she betrays him first, to which Sanosuke says that he understands and doesn't consider it a betrayal. They then share one final kiss before Sanosuke dies. What a sad and twisted Romeo and Juliet moment. While I do kind of understand why she did this, because she was pressured by her NG code of not letting anyone leave the building, and that she was scared and couldn't take the risk, but this is still very wrong to betray and kill someone like this, especially to your boyfriend. She could have at least tried to ask for help to get over her fears of betrayal, but no. She let her fears get the better of her because of the pressure of the killing game. Boy, this is only number 10 and we're already off to a good start, huh? But the reason it's so low on the list is because it's not as dark as some of the other moments I'll get to soon. It's just sad and a bit depressing. But still, this shows you just how far Ruruka Ando will go when she's pushed to her limit. Number 9. The Izuru Kamakura Project. Oh man, human experimentation is always a dark theme in movies, TV shows, and video games, if it goes too far. Basically, the Izuru Kamakura Project was named after the founder of Host Peak Academy. It was directed by the steering committee, who are the board of directors of Hope's Peak, to create the ultimate hope by giving a student of Hope's Peak every single talent. And that the student they did this on was Hajime Hinata, who was a reserve corps student with no talent. The project might have been successful on paper, but in reality the results were much worse. Hajime was turned into Izuru Kamakura, but in the process he lost all his memories when he was Hajime. Because the steering committee lobotomized his brain and removed his original Hajime personality, and replaced it with Izuru, who was apathetic to everything around him, and had no memory of his former life. What the hell? Why the hell would the steering committee ever do such a thing? They should never have been allowed to work on this project. Especially since they kept it a secret and didn't tell anyone about it. Not even the principal, Jin Kirigiri. Man, the steering committee were so evil and corrupt that they didn't even care what would happen to Hajime. What a bunch of scumbags. This is number 9 on the list because experimenting on high school students is illegal and a sin, regardless of the reasons. The steering committee were just evil and corrupt because not only they completely erased Hajime's personality by turning him to Izuru Kamakura, but they were experimenting on high school students without permission, which is freaking disgusting. Number 8. Ruruka Ando's corpse. If you thought Ruruka betraying Sanosuke was dark enough, then you haven't seen anything yet. During the 4th rest period, when Ruruka gets knocked unconscious, she was forced to watch a video on one of the monitors that led to her committing suicide. And my god, the sight of her corpse is very, very disturbing. Out of all the deaths in the future arc, Ruruka's is easily the most brutal and disturbing. And what's worse is that she did this to herself when she saw the suicide video. Even though she wasn't the most likable of characters in Danganronpa, she didn't really deserve this brutal fate. Not to mention that she ends up dying all alone. Yeah, I was really disturbed by this, and that's why I decided to include this as number 8. Number 7. Despair Mikon. Oh boy, where to start with this one? But before I talk about this moment, I just want to give a disclaimer first. I'm gonna try to keep this as brief as possible and not spend too much time on it. Because people don't like to think about these moments, including me. Not to mention that YouTube hates people talking about this on their platform, as it's a very dark issue. So I'll try not to spend too much time on it. Anyway, when Ryota learns about the despair video, he tries to get help, only for Mikon to appear behind him. Having been affected by the video, Mikon has already become in ultimate despair, and tries to persuade Ryota to help her and Junko. Ryota obviously refuses and tries to get Mikon to come to her senses. But Mikon does not listen and continues to flirt with him and straddle him. But thankfully, Junko prevented Mikon from going any further by kicking her away from him. I really don't like this scene as it really creeped me out. And I find Despair Mikon to be incredibly creepy. I do not like the way she talks in this scene at all. And seeing Ryota's face the whole time while Mikon was doing this really made me feel bad for him. I mean, I know Mikon was brainwashed and not in control of her actions, and this is never anything she would have done normally. But still, she almost crossed the line when she flirted with Ryota. Let's just move on to the next one. Number 6. The attacker was the victim. Man, was this one a shocker. After Hina looked at Kyoko's notebook, it was revealed that the victims were never attacked, but instead committed suicide by stabbing themselves. But you wait, it gets even worse. After they were knocked unconscious after the timer went out, whoever was closest to one of the monitors gets waken up from their bracelets. And then they were forced to watch the video on the monitor, which causes them to go insane and ended up killing themselves. The victims were Chisa Yukizome, Great Gozu, Seiko Kimura, and Ruruka Ando, who I mentioned earlier. Holy crap, was this disturbing or what? Personally, the ones I find the most disturbing are Ruruka Ando, Chisa Yukizome, and Great Gozu. It was very shocking to hear that the attacker was actually the victim the whole time. Man, Chisa and Gozu deserved better than this. These next 5 moments on this list are where things are really gonna get dark and disturbing. So I hope you guys have a strong stomach for these next ones. Number 5. Makoto's hallucination. If you thought that the last moment was bad enough, then you haven't seen this one. After Makoto finds out about the truth, he decides to test the theory by sitting in front of one of the monitors, by having himself tied up so that he wouldn't kill himself. Soon enough, the monitor turns on and then it leads to this. Makoto starts to have a hallucination of his deceased classmates, including Sayaka and Kyoko. And then we have these shots of what they looked like after they died. And then they taunt Makoto into joining them by stabbing himself, which causes Makoto to be filled with so much guilt that he ends up going insane and starts screaming. And then he starts getting the same eyes and smile as the remnants of despair. But thankfully, Juzo Sakakura was able to prevent Makoto from stabbing himself and gets him back to his senses. But my god, this was no joke really one of the scenes that shocked me the most. I thought that Makoto would be immune to the video because of how pure-hearted he is. But this shows you that not even he is immune to the suicide video, showing that he is still human, and it doesn't matter if you're pure-hearted, as the video can still turn you into a despair-crazed murderer. Man, this scene really deserves a number 5 spot because of how very unsettling it is. Not to mention that the shot of Makoto's eyes and him saying, "Yes, I'm on my way," was very disturbing. Number 4. The Reserve Course Mass Suicide. Episode 11 of the Despair Arc is filled to the brim with dark moments. But the scene where the Reserve Course commits mass suicide really takes the cake. At least in my opinion. What happens is that Junko Inoshima brainwashes them into becoming her army, and they start laying siege to the main course building and start going on a killing spree. And after Junko thinks they've served her well, she then sends them a video that causes them to go insane and start jumping off the freaking building and falling to their deaths, all the while laughing the whole time. What the hell? This makes it look like they're falling from the freaking sky! And not to mention, when Kazuo Tengen and Koichi Kizakura went outside to see what was happening, they could not believe their eyes, and could do nothing but watch in horror. This really shows you how evil and insane Junko Inoshima is. She uses everyone around her as puppets or tools to be disposed of when they're no longer useful to her. And when Mukuro asks why Junko couldn't keep them alive, she just replies that saying that they may think like her, but they're nowhere near the level of being useful to her. What an evil soul. Bottom line, this scene is number 4 on the list because it's so messed up and nightmarish beyond words that I can't even imagine it. And I never want to see anything like this in real life. Number 3. Chisayuki Zome's brainwashing. If I had to use one word to describe this scene, it would be heartbreaking. Whoo boy, where do I even start? When Chisayuki Zome confronts Junko in the secret room under the statue next to the main course building, Junko forces Chisa to watch a reserve corps student commit suicide by sawing his head off. And if that wasn't disturbing enough for you, Chisa is then strapped to a chair, forcing her to watch the despair video with her eyes forced open. But surprisingly, Chisa's willpower is stronger than Junko and Mukuro thought. But to make matters worse, Mukuro decides to tamper with Chisa's brain by sticking freaking needles in it. To put it bluntly, she lobotomizes her brain. That's right! She freaking lobotomizes her! And all the while, we hear Chisa screaming to make it stop. And we get disturbing shots of her breasts and groin, including one after she's presumably broken, which shows her legs twitching, further implying that she's being made to feel pleasure from despair. And this destroys the last of her willpower, and then she collapses in the chair, while Izuru Kamakura was watching the whole time. What the hell? When I saw this scene, I was so heartbroken and angry that I was feeling like I was about to cry. Especially since this is Chisayuki Zome we're talking about. And she's one of the sweetest characters in the entire franchise. Which makes the scene a lot more worse and heartbreaking than it already is. I know this is just a fictional character, but still, you get where I'm coming from. Bottom line, this scene deserves the number 3 spot on the list because it's so freaking disgusting and monstrous to do to a human being that I can't even stand the sight of it. Not to mention that hearing Chisa's screams during this scene is just incredibly heartbreaking. What were the writers even thinking? She deserved much better than this, as this scene completely ruins her character and changes her from being a sweet, kind-hearted teacher to one of Junko Enoshima's puppets. And I don't know if I'll ever look at her the same again. Number 2. Chiaki Nanami's punishment. You all knew this was coming, didn't you? And if you did, consider yourselves lucky, because not only is this scene a little more heartbreaking than Chisayuki Zome's, but it's also the reason why Class 77B turned into Remnants of Despair in the first place. What happens is that Chiaki gets separated from the group when they went to rescue Yuki Zome. But Yuki Zome finds her, but we obviously knew something was wrong. Eventually they reach an elevator, and Yuki Zome pushes Chiaki into it. And we see Chisa's eyes turn into the same insane swirls Junko Enoshima had. Man, this really breaks your heart, doesn't it? Anyway, if you played Goodbye Despair, then you probably already knew of Chiaki's execution. But this is on a whole other level, literally. Because Chiaki is forced into a multi-layered trapped maze, while Junko mocks her the entire time. And to make matters worse, the rest of Class 77B were forced to watch all of this on the screens from the iconic class trial room. And Chiaki keeps getting more and more injured, until she finally reaches the end in which she thinks that Chisayuki Zome and her classmates were waiting for her. But really, it was all a trap made by Junko. And then Chiaki ends up getting stabbed with multiple spikes, and ends up on the floor in a pool of blood, slowly dying. And then after seeing Chiaki's death, Class 77B is filled with so much despair that they end up going insane and becoming the remnants of despair. My God, did this scene scare me to death. As I absolutely liked Chiaki from Goodbye Despair, and seeing her die again in this show is so incredibly intense and depressing. Not to mention that the shot of Class 77B becoming Ultimate Despair is nightmare fuel on a whole other level. Oh, and how can I forget the scene where she tries to reach out to Izuru, who is really Hajime, only for him to just stand there while she dies. Overall, this scene deserves the number 2 spot for these reasons alone. I mean, it's so depressing and a little more heartbreaking than the previous scene I mentioned earlier. It's just another scene that shows you just how evil Junko is, as she takes Chisayuki Zome and Chiaki Nanami away from Class 77B and turns them into the remnants of despair. And no matter how much time has passed, Chiaki's death does not get any less tragic. And the number 1 darkest moment in Danganronpa 3, the end of Host Peak High School, is the Student Council killing game. No contest whatsoever. If you knew this was coming, then consider yourselves lucky, because not only is this the darkest moment in Danganronpa 3, but it's what started Junko Inoshima's rise to power. Oh boy, where do I even start with this one? Oh, I know! Junko and Mukuro capture the student council, and Mukuro tells them that they have to kill each other. This causes one of them to question her, and then Mukuro shoots her to silence her. Then Junko comes in and brings in a cart full of files with the student council secrets. Oh, and some weapons. The leader of the council stands up to Junko and says that he and them are friends and that they would never kill each other. But then this is where things get worse. Junko pulls out a music sheet and tells Mukuro to sing. This causes her to feel embarrassed, but she still does it anyway. And to make matters worse, Karen, the secretary of the student council, sees a file on the cart and walks over to it, which shows a picture of her mother. This fills her with utter fear that she grabs a katana and stabs one of her classmates with it. And it only gets worse and worse and worse. After she did this, the student council gets so scared that this starts them to run around and murder each other, Battle Royale style. They're either desperately begging one another to stop, going mad with laughter, or breaking down after murdering their former friends. Why are they killing each other? Because Junko ordered them to do it, or she'll both kill their loved ones and reveal their dirtiest secrets all over the internet. And Junko and Mukuro are watching all of this from the control room, with Junko monologuing about hope and despair. And it eventually ends with the entire student council dead, except for one person who then spots Izuru Kamakura, who was watching all of this the whole time. He then charges at Izuru, but he knocks him back against the window, and then falls on a chainsaw, decapitating him. Then Izuru notices that a bullet grazed his cheek, making him realize how unpredictable despair can be. This scene absolutely terrified me when I watched it. Hearing the screaming and seeing the student council killing each other was so brutal and intense that it scared me to death. Not to mention that Mukuro singing during the scene did not help one bit, as it made the scene even more disturbing. Man, imagine if the song Over the Rainbow from The Wizard of Oz was playing during this scene. That would make it a lot more creepy. Bottom line, this scene is number 1 on the list because it's the most brutal and tragic scene in the entire anime. Hell, even the most tragic scene in the entire franchise, period. It is the absolute scariest scene I have ever seen in my life. It might be scarier than the classic dark Disney moments I saw when I was a kid. It's basically a combination of every single thing I've talked about, but ramped up to 11. And nothing will ever come close to it. Okay, I think we finally made it to the end. That was a long ride, wasn't it? I hope you've enjoyed this video. That was my list for the top 10 darkest moments in Danganronpa 3, The End of Host Peak High School. Do you agree with my list, or do you have your own personal preferences? And if there are any mistakes I made, please let me know in the comments. And maybe if this video does well, I might make a video on my top 10 favorite characters from Danganronpa. Stay tuned for that. And let me know what top 10 list I should make next. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, share with your friends, and subscribe if you want to, so that you don't miss out on my future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. And happy belated 15th anniversary, Danganronpa.